Hello everybody, so in today's video I'm going to show you how to do custom animations with your navbar and your nav links. So if we were to just throw on a standard navbar inside of WebFlow, we'll give this a background color of white. There are certain things we can actually do with this already without doing anything special to it, or using anything other than what comes as default inside of WebFlow. So if you want to say have a line appear on hover, you can do that. If I just get rid of two of these for now, what I'm going to do is that on hover, I want this to basically have a line that comes underneath it. And the way I can do that is by going to our hover state here. And what I could probably do is just go on box shadow and then move that to the bottom. We'll get rid of all of the blur. The distance will increase to something like 5 pixels. And then we'll just get that a color of something bold so we can see it. And there we go. We have now like a blue underline. And if we just hover over that, you can see it's kind of appearing there, which is fine. We'll actually just make our navbar a little bit larger so you can see this a bit better. So once again, if we just look at that, you'll see it's appearing. Now obviously if you want to apply some kind of transition effect to that, we can do. Now we're not on the hover state, we're on the non-state. You can go to transitions, and then you can go to box shadow, and then do whatever duration you want. Set it to ease, and now whenever we hover over it, you've got a really sort of basic sort of underlined thing. Now this is quite common in WebFlow, and this is pretty easy to set up because we just did it in literally a few seconds. But what if you want something more interesting than that? The whole point of WebFlow is that you can do things that you can't do as easily on other builders. So what I'm going to do is just show you a couple of things that might be of interest to you. One, we're going to use Lottie files, and the other one we're going to just use basically a simple interaction to kind of show and hide an icon. So first of all, what we'll do is throw on a link block inside of our nav menu. So I've got rid of the nav links because you can't actually put anything inside a nav link. If I was to try and throw in a div block here, for instance, if I use my navigator, you can see if I try and drag it in, it's not going to let me do that. So I can't do anything in terms of animations with things inside a nav link. So you have to basically create your own. So we'll just get rid of that, and we'll get rid of our nav link, but inside the nav menu, what I'm going to do is basically just throw in a link block. And now this link block is going to allow us to do some more interesting things. So inside the link block, what I'm going to do is just give it some padding. So we'll do padding all the way around to something like 20 pixels, which is what the standard nav link comes with. Inside there, we'll just put in a text block, and then we'll just call this home. We need to get rid of this horrible styling that comes as standard on link blocks. So at the moment it's got an underline, so get rid of that. And the color, we'll just make it as black. It says it is black, but obviously it's not. Okay, so we'll actually just make it a little bit larger as well so we can see what we're working with. And we'll maybe just make it so it's bold so we can see better. Okay, so inside this link block, we're going to just basically put an icon inside, and we're going to make the icon show when we hover over the link block. Now this again you couldn't do unless you use this. So what we're going to do inside our link block, we're going to throw on an image, and then we'll just choose this image that I've loaded on. So let's imagine you're doing some kind of pet related website. We'll then just make this image a little bit smaller, just eyeball it for now, so something like that, let's say. The link block itself, we're going to make that flex so we can get it next to each other. We'll then just reposition this image above so the text goes on the left. We'll then just apply a little bit of margin so it pushes it away, and that I think is pretty much all right. So we'll just call this home for speed. And then what we can do now is start our animation. So with the link block selected, you want to make sure you give things a class name for this all to work, by the way. If we now go to our interactions panel, we'll then start on mouse hover. We'll start an animation, and we'll just call this hover in. And what we want to do is basically show this icon when we hover over the link block. So let's do that. So if we make sure we select our image here, and then we'll basically go to our opacity. And for the initial state, it needs to be checked. We'll need to have it so the opacity is 0%. Then if you right click the image, duplicate it, this time we'll have it so it goes to 100% when we hover on over this link block. And then we'll set it so it eases in, and we'll do a duration of something like 0.3. Again, you can set this to anything you want to, and if we just preview that, you'll see it's now going to appear. And in fact, you know what, we actually might make it 0.5 after all. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Okay, so that's the hover in part done. All we have to do now is make it kind of go away when we hover out. So if we now go into the hover out setting, we'll do start an animation. We're actually going to just duplicate the one we've already done, and then we will rename it and we'll just call it hover out. Okay, make sure it's selected, and then we'll configure it by clicking this icon cog here. Get rid of this first option, just delete it. Uncheck the initial state, set it back to ease. And the duration, I think we had 0.5, so we'll keep it as that. And then we can save it, and now when we hover over this, the poor print will appear. When we take it away, it'll go away. So this is something you couldn't do with the standard nav link inside of WebFlow, because it won't let you put items inside of other items. So this is the only real way that you can do it. There's probably another way you could do it by using some absolute positioning, but this is kind of the easiest way I can think of doing it. Okay, so that's kind of a nice basic thing. Obviously this could be, this could have a million different kind of use cases where if you wanted an icon to appear. Maybe a more exciting way though is maybe if you wanted to use Lottie files. So let's have a look at this version as well. So if we just get rid of our image, what we're going to do now is just use a line animation, and then we'll get that to play when we hover over our navlink item. So what we're going to do, so this is lottiefiles.com. If you're not familiar with this, it's a very useful website where you can download basically mini animations. It's great for sort of hamburger animations for mobile navigations. I use it all the time. But obviously you can also use this for what we're doing right now. So what I'm going to do is just convert this from being red to a different color. So we'll probably just have it as black. So if we go to edit layer colors, I'm going to just change it from being red to dark. So we'll just do that, update it, and that's all we want. So then we can just click on download the JSON file. Then we'll go back to our project, and inside of our link block here, we're then going to throw in a Lottie animation, and then we'll replace that, and then we'll just drag this one in that we've just downloaded. Okay, and there we go. So we need to make it a little bit smaller, because obviously it's massive at the moment. So we'll do a width of 100%, but we'll do the height as something like maybe 10 pixels, maybe a bit more than that actually. Maybe 20 pixels. Okay, so that's fine. Now obviously we don't necessarily want it to be next to our sort of text here. We want it to be underneath. So on the link block itself, rather than the flex direction being horizontal, make it vertical, and it will now sit underneath. And if we just preview this, you'll see it will automatically play. Well, we wanted to actually do that when we hover over it. And the positioning of this looks a little bit off, so I am going to just actually manually move it a tiny bit, just by eyeballing it. Okay, that looks about right to me. Okay, so now what we will do is we'll now kind of redo this animation again. So on the mouse hover in fact, we'll just start a new one actually. We'll actually just delete this animation just so we can start from fresh. So with the link block selected, we also need to make sure that we have a class name for this Lottie file. It's automatically given it a class of Lottie animation, which for the purpose of this tutorial is fine. So again, make sure your link block is selected, go to your interactions here, and then on mouse hover is what we want to affect. And then we will start an animation, and then we'll just call it Lottie in. And then we will select the Lottie animation, go onto our actions panel, and then click where it says integrations on Lottie. And what we want to do is play this animation. So the initial state will have it so it's set to 0, which is going to be totally fine. And then we're going to basically just duplicate that again. And then this time we can move the slider here at the bottom, just get rid of this for a moment, just move that to a point where it looks like it's finished. And you can see there at 100%, it actually disappears. We actually don't want that to happen. So we'll actually just back off, so not quite 100%. We'll stop it around about 98, and that looks about right to me. And if we just preview that, you can see it works pretty well. Okay, so you can set the duration to whatever you want it to be. I'm actually going to leave it as it is, and then we will save that. And then we need to affect this on hover out as well. So if we go now to our hover out option, we'll go and start animation. We'll actually just duplicate what we've just done. So we will duplicate that and we'll rename it Lottie out. Make sure it's selected, and then we'll configure it, get rid of this first option, and then we're pretty much good to go as it is after that. Actually, sorry, just untick the initial state. That's going to be fine. And the rest of it can stay pretty much as it is. Okay, so now the moment of truth. If we preview this, you'll see it, and when we hover on, it appears. When we go back, it kind of goes out again. Now we may want to change that so it doesn't appear initially. We could have done that, but again, hopefully this proves the point that you can use Lottie animations when we hover over things. And if you wanted to then do multiple versions of this, all you need to do is just select your link block and then just copy and paste that a number of times. You'll need to make sure that the nav menu that you have there is set to flex, and then now this should work perfectly. And there we go. We've now affected our nav items with a Lottie animation as well as an icon that goes from 0 opacity to 100%. Okay, so hopefully you found that useful. Have a play around with this yourself, and if you want to see more of these kind of videos, be sure to be subscribed to the channel, and I will see you on the next video.